The subject of this week's talk is resilience. In this talk, I'm going to define resilience. I'm going to connect that definition to our mindfulness practice. I'm going to tell you a short story about a time in my young adult life when, as a member of the American military, I learned a lesson in resilience. And then I'm going to leave you with two practices that you can begin right away to develop and increase your own capacity for resilience. Let's get started. So Merriam-Webster defines resilience as the ability to recover from or easily adjust to misfortune or change. I like to boil that down even more and simply say that resilience is a combination of flexibility and strength. I need to be flexible enough to bend and adjust as misfortune inevitably arises. But I need to be strong enough that when I bend, that I do not break. This is in its essence what resilience is. When the cold rain starts to fall, some people jump up immediately, run into the house, and maybe rummage around for their raincoat if they want to come back outside. Others are more thoughtful, and they look around and they assess, how hard is it raining? They relax the muscles in their abdomen and allow the cold wind to just blow through them a bit. They remind themselves that their body is waterproof and that it generates its own heat. And then inside of those thoughtful reflections, they find the space to choose. And in that choice, they might decide that they want to finish their coffee and enjoy the morning in their own garden. Those people are practicing resilience. They are being both strong and flexible, not in this case, as you can see, of body necessarily, but of mind. If we pin our happiness to external causes and conditions, it becomes very elusive. But if I pin my happiness to the attitude that I bring to my ever-changing environment, then I have a lot more chance at success. Now I'm going to tell you a short story about an experience I had in the military that really showed me the benefits of resilience. So just about 2 weeks after my 19th birthday, I started a 13-week basic training to join the military to become a United States Marine. Somewhere along that training, they took my platoon of 100 of us to the swimming pool. They called it a swimming qualification test. What it was for me was a morning of absolute torture. Picture jumping off a 40-foot tower with a helmet on and a rifle on your shoulder and boots on your feet, and on. Just a series of quite difficult swimming tasks to be done in the pool, usually under load or under some duress. Now you have to understand, to really get into where my day was, I'm a terrible swimmer. In fact, I have a little bit of a phobia of being in the water that I inherited from my dad and that I think he inherited from his. So long story short, I failed that test that day. And when I say failed, I want to be clear. I didn't get scored a 64. I drowned. I had to be pulled out of the water and puke up what I had swallowed on the side. So later that day, my drill instructors pulled me aside and were very clear. That was a non-negotiable. You have to pass that test tomorrow or we'll be sending you home. So you can imagine 19-year-old Dave lying in his bunk that night trying to figure out, how am I going to pass this test tomorrow? I knew for sure that there was no way I was going to be a functionally stronger swimmer the next day. So I went through my mind and I looked at what I knew. One of the reasons why the test had been so difficult was anxiety and fear. And part of that was driven by the fact that I didn't know what was coming. But tomorrow, that was not going to be the case. I had seen the entire exam, and so I knew what was going to be expected of me. So right away, less anxiety, more clarity. The next thing I thought of was, well, What's worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is drowning, and I've already done that. Not that I want to pretend that it was a pleasant experience, but it wasn't so unpleasant that I wasn't there lying warm and safe in my bed. And so here again, anxiety reducing, clarity and focus of purpose increasing. Then the next thought I had was, well, what can I do to improve my performance tomorrow? And the only thing I could think of was that I could shift something in my mind. And I said, well, what I can do right now is commit really firmly, drop anchor to the notion that no matter what happens, no matter how frightened I get, no matter how panicked I get, no matter how difficult it is, that I will continue to swim unless I drown. And I knew, because it had already happened, that if I drowned, I'd be pulled out and saved. And so this is what I did. And in exercise after exercise, many of which involved sort of getting from one side of the pool to the other in some difficult manner, I felt and heard the thunk of my helmet hitting the wall on the other side at the end of my drowning and my flailing. And so in this manner, one stage at a time throughout that torturous morning, I passed that test. And so this is an example of how resilience really benefits us. Because in those moments, under that tremendous pressure, I was able to both be flexible enough of mind to come up with a plan and tough enough of mind to follow it through. Now, of course, I could tell you 100 stories now of when that didn't happen and when resilience was not available to me. And that's why we train. So now we're going to take a look at two practices that I use on a regular basis to help expand and maintain my capacity for resilience. The first one is the practice of "and this." Our minds have a very strong habit to be in constant judgment. We are constantly liking, disliking, agreeing, disagreeing. We are carving up reality into piles of positive, negative, neutral, or mixed experience. This is not altogether healthy for us. It can steer us in the direction of the kind of reactivity, the lack of resiliency that we've been talking about. And so the practice of "and this" is a training and taking a step back from that. So as moments are coming, the smell of fresh baked bread, our mind wants to like, or say positive, or say good. And instead, we say to ourselves silently in our minds, "and this." Then the work email that's annoying comes in. "And this." Then the sensation of hunger arises. "And this." Over and over again. I recommend trying it for one full day. Just try to meet every moment in your day with the silent recognition and acceptance in the simple phrase, "and this." In this way, we train our acceptance muscle and we de-emphasize or shrink down the strength of that habit we have to immediately judge and then react based on that judgment. And now the second practice. This is a teaching straight from my teacher, the Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh. He has given us the gift of a sacred pause in the form of a question. Are you sure? Our minds love to agree with themselves. And that leads us to a pretty strong attachment to view. And so when you notice that you really feel a way strongly, ask yourself the question, are you sure? Because if we ask ourselves that question honestly enough, the answer is always no. Let me say that again. If we ask ourselves the question, are you sure? Honestly enough, the answer is always no. Because how could we be? We never have complete information We never really have the 360-degree view that we'd like, not to mention the fact that the truth changes. New truths come to light, opinions and circumstances change. And then add on to that almost always, if not all the time, other human beings are involved in these matters of falsehood or truth. And we can never know fully the mind of another human being. And so in reality, the answer to the question, are you sure, is no. I'm not 100% sure. And by reminding myself of that, I create more of this space that we've been talking about, this space between stimulus and response. I soften my attachments to the view I have right now, which makes me less vulnerable, less susceptible to a reactive choice. And instead, it expands the space I have to make a thoughtful choice. So I invite you to practice with that. Put the question up on the wall somewhere where you can see it and ask yourself over and over again, particularly in areas where you think you're really right. Are you sure? Thanks so much for watching. Please leave a comment below or even a topic that you'd like to see me cover in a future talk. I post a talk here every Friday. If you'd like to see them, please subscribe and make sure to click the bell icon so that you get an alert when they come out. I'm going to throw up a thumbnail here for a talk I gave on the definition of mindfulness that I think goes well with the topic we just covered. We got this.